Hello and welcome to Just Be Handy. Today we're going to be doing an oil change on a 2017 Outback with a Fumoto valve. But first I wanted to show you the simple ramps that I made out of 2x6s. Now you could do the same thing out of 2x8s, 2x10s, but it's very simple construction, as you can see. It's just I cut them and step them out with the 45-degree angles, and it makes for a really good ramp, and I'll show you how that works here once I get the car up, and then we'll look at doing the oil change on a 2017 Outback. One of the first things to do is to clean out this gutter area around the filter. In the Subaru Outback, this is the 4-cylinder. They make it really easy to get to the oil filter, but you should always clean around it. I use like a little bit of a carb cleaner to just break down the, break things down, and that loosens up the dirt. And then I'll use some compressed air and get it loosened up. But first I'll spray that. Let it sit there for a while, kind of to loosen up the dirt, and then we'll get some compressed air on it later. But meanwhile, let's go to the bottom and open up the drain plug. I have a Fumoto valve. I'll show you how that works as well. Okay, as you can see here, I do have a Fumoto valve installed on my car, and I'll show you exactly where that's going to be mounted and so on, but I'll just show you the functionality of the Fumoto valve. What I'm removing here is a safety valve, safety for the valve. It's a 90-degree ball valve. And then what they have is this nice tube that clicks onto here, like so. And then that goes down to an oil pan. And then all I have to do is turn this ball valve open, and the oil starts to come out. It's that simple. As you can see, it just fills the oil pan for me without any issues. It's just, I'm going to leave it go. I did take an oil sample while I was at it. I did stop that valve, as you saw before. Took an oil sample, and now I'm just pulling the camera away so you can see how it goes in there. You can't see the valve because in the Subaru they put this plastic shroud that fully hides everything. The valve sits at least, I would say a couple of inches above that plastic, so you'd be hard pressed to ever get that hurt or anything, or hit. You'd have to really try. So I really like this setup, and I think you would too. I'll leave links to all that, the oil sample bottles and the Fumoto valve and the tube and everything. You can get them all at Amazon without much money. Again, you can see how the car is up on those 2x6s. And you could do the same thing yourself. It's real easy to go up on those and then have them hold your car up enough to get down and do what you need to. All right, we'll continue with the oil change here. On there, just blow any of the dirt and loose solvent around. You don't need much air pressure. And then just use a rag and wipe clean around there. Just get in there and clean it all out. and you should have it look really clean in there when you're done, because you don't want any dirt getting back into the engine. And I always put the filters on hand tight. So let's see if we can get it loose. There we go. All right. And as you can see, it does drain back, so that's why you want to clean it up really well. All right. And as you can see, when you use the Fumoto valve, and I love this Subaru setup, it's very low on the mess factor. All right, so now I'll just clean the rest of this with a rag. All right, and then we'll put the new filter on, and then shut the Fumoto valve off, back, you know, that 90-degree valve off, and then put the oil back in, and then close it all up. I do want to mention about the oil filters. Make sure it's the right one for this car. There are some oil filters out there, like the Mobile One and some of the Frams, that don't have the proper bypass pressure. For Subarus, you want a bypass pressure of around 23 psi to 30 psi. And that's because Subaru uses really high pressure oil pumps. If you use one that doesn't have that 20 to 30 psi pop off pressure on the bypass valve, what happens is when the car is cold and you accelerate, you could be running in bypass mode. So getting dirty oil, bypassing the filter and going back into your engine. So for the Subarus, I like to use this Purolator, either the PL14615, or there's the Boss version of it. But because you use synthetic oil in these cars, I recommend the minimum being the PL14615, which is a 10,000 mile oil filter. I don't go beyond the 6,000 miles recommended, even with synthetic. So definitely would recommend you look at the pressure rating for the bypass valve. And for Subarus, it has to be around 23 or so PSI for the bypass. Most of the filters you'll find out there are around that 10 to 15 PSI bypass. Again, you don't want to be running in bypass and getting dirty oil into your engine. Just taking some of the oil off of this O-ring and just kind of putting it on here. You want to make sure you get a little bit of oil on that O-ring. Doesn't matter if it's fresh or slightly used. It's still synthetic oil. It's good. So I got new oil on here, and then we'll go up and put that right on. And wipe my hand off, and then make sure that's good and tight. There we go. So that filter is ready to go. And then I will shut the valve off at the bottom there, and we'll go from there. Okay, as you can see, I took this valve off and took the hose off and turned the valve 90 degrees to close. And you can see I'll open it here, show that everything was cleared out. I've got a little bit more oil there to come through. And then this is just a little residual that came through. Should be, most of it came out of the hose, but just a little bit that was left. And then I'll close it up and we'll go from there. And at least we get to see that it's fully closed. Nothing's coming out. That valve really works well. We'll just give it a good wipe. And then put this on for safety. Thankfully, I haven't lost one of these. This is the one that came with it, and it's been working really well. And now we can go up to the top and start putting oil in. The oil I'll end up using, it is the same manufacturer that makes the Subaru oil. There is another brand, another version of this SAE0W20 that Idemitsu, I can't really say it, uses, that has more moly in it. I don't recommend more moly for some of the European vehicles, but that is what Subaru uses as their new fill. This one is one grade lower, but works really well. So I'm going to use this for the next basically 5,000 to 6,000 miles. I did get it off of Amazon. There was an awesome deal on it at basically $15 to $16 for this 5-quart jug. And from everything I've seen and the oil sampling I do, this is a great oil. And I'll be sending in my oil sample and showing that at a later date. But for right now, I'm going to fill it with this. So I'll just put in 5 quarts here and close it up, and we'll go from there. These big funnels work out great. I mean, look at 0W20 and 5 quarts just going down. And there you have it. An oil change with no mess. As you can see with that Fumoto valve and the way that Subaru put that filter location, you can't go wrong. Basically, there's no mess now, and I'll just go ahead and clean everything up, and we'll go from there. See, look at that. I even took the tube out, and no mess. Everything went right into the pan. I didn't even use anything underneath it. All right. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please click the thumbs up and look for those links to the oil filter, the sampling bottle for the oil analysis. Here I use the Wix oil bottles, oil sampling bottles. They provide a nice kit, and please click thumbs up if you liked it.